Okay, so right now I'm working on the spanners for the tops of the legs. So these guys are going to go across each leg, just two of them. And then what they're going to do is we're going to put a dado in the bottoms, and then they're going to be crisscrossed like that to attach the legs. The dimensions of these are about 5/8 inches thick, and they're 1.5 inches wide. That's the same width as the leg. And across the top is 9 inches. So these are just a little bit longer than 9 inches, so you can trim them afterward. But what we're going to do to start is we mark the center of these on each, and then I mark the width. So what's going to happen is, because it's going to cross, we're going to dado out the width of this board. And the one other component that we need to consider is the height of the blade. So when I measured this out, it's half the thickness of this. So this was 5/8, so this is 5/16 the height. So that'll be half, so the two will be flush with one another. So I've just marked on the front of this where my notches are, and that's the same width as this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them on my little dado sled. I'll line these guys up. And basically I'm just going to start by cutting these out and just notch them all the way across, and I'll be doing two at the same time. We'll just make sure they're always lined up, and then we'll be done. I'll just do a check to see if these are coming together. So I'm getting really close. So now I just need a couple more cuts. So one of the first things I actually did was I marked the center of these legs and then put a 1.5 inch mark. So this is the center, and I also did that on this set of legs here. So now what I can do is I can interlock these, and what I do is I can just line them up. So this leg is in the center here, and if I look to the side, I'm able to put that in the center there. Okay, so now they're centered. What we're going to do is we are going to work on the screw holes to attach this on. So what our concern here is, we want these pieces on the cross to be in the center of the leg. But we also want these edges to be even. So we can line that up. Okay. And we also want the marks, so if I look at my mark on either side, you can just make it out in the video here. There's a line right there, and there's a line right there. So at the moment it's off just slightly, but I'll adjust it. But the idea is you want the legs to be centered with one another using those 1/2 inch, 1.5 inch marks I made. And then we want the top to be sitting flush and then in the middle of each leg. Okay, so what I'm going to start off by doing is I'm going to use a Forstner bit to make a recess for a screw, and then we're just going to pilot it, and we'll just lightly screw it in, just hold everything together. As I've marked 3/4 of an inch in and 3/4 of an inch from each edge. So that's essentially the center of the leg. Okay, what I want to do is I'm going to make a recess for the screws. So I have a scrap piece of wood here. I don't really need it right now, but I'm just going to take my Forstner bit, line it up with my mark, make a little recess. What the recess is for is so the screw head doesn't sit proud on this, because the top is going to come right onto this piece and sit flush. So I don't want any obstruction from it sitting flat. Okay, so I'm just going to go around and make the rest of my recesses. So I made the recesses about 1/8 of an inch. It's not a super crucial dimension, but that's about what I like. Okay, the next thing I want to do I want to take a bit and I just want to pilot the holes. The pilot hole, in this situation, what I want to do is I want to make the pilot hole larger than the screw. Because what that'll do is then it acts as a clamp. So the screw will be not loose, but it'll be pretty much free to move rotationally in the hole, but then in the leg it'll be tight because I'll use a smaller pilot hole. So what I was talking about was now if I take the screw, actually screw it in, it's free to turn, okay? So that makes for more of a clamping situation with the screw because there's no restriction on the screw getting through this piece of wood, so it'll clamp right onto the leg. So what I've done here is I've clamped the legs to the worktop in kind of an awkward fashion, but it works. So what I've done is I've just clamped each leg using a clamp to go onto my worktop. You can see each one is held on by a separate clamp. And what I've done on the top is I've just clamped the cross onto it. What I'm going to start by doing is I line up this guy and this guy. I'm going to make some pilot holes, put screws in really lightly just to hold the legs in place. I'm not going to drill them in all the way. And then I'm going to line up this leg, the angle wise, and then do the same thing. Just put 2 screws in to hold things in place. Okay, so I'm using a smaller bit now. I've lined up this cross with this set of legs. Just so things don't move around, I'm going to put this screw in. Just lightly, I'm not countersinking it. Okay, make sure this one is still lined up. Looks good. Okay, so this is lined up. These legs are centered with one another, but now I want to make sure that the angle is right. So I can see this is kind of needs to be turned just a little bit. Okay, turn this guy a little bit. Okay, so I'm looking down, I can see my marks, I'm still centered. So the legs down here are centered with one another. And because now this is flush and this is flush, now I know they're square with one another. Okay, so I'm just going to put a screw in.